The whisper was so quiet that it should have disappeared into the busy afternoon, yet it became the sentence that changed 2 lives forever. As visitors filled the bright hospital lobby with flowers and hopeful smiles, a young woman nervously caught the sleeve of a stranger beside her and pleaded, "Please don't tell my mother I'm single." Her eyes were filled with fear rather than embarrassment, and before the man could even understand why she had chosen him, an elderly woman in a wheelchair turned the corner with the biggest smile on her face, believing she was about to meet the daughter's long-awaited partner. Before this emotional journey begins, if you believe kindness, forgiveness, hope, and second chances still have the power to change lives, please like this video, leave a thoughtful comment, share it with someone who needs encouragement today, and subscribe to our channel so our family and our community can continue sharing stories that inspire hearts around the world. Graham Mercer had spent the past 4 years raising his 7-year-old daughter, Clara, after losing his wife to a sudden illness. Life had taught him how to fix broken bicycles, braid messy hair, and smile even when his own heart still carried invisible cracks. He worked as a landscape designer, lived modestly, and rarely allowed himself to imagine another relationship. His entire world revolved around giving Clara the joyful childhood she deserved. The woman who had stopped him was named Meredith Lawson, a successful architect whose polished appearance hid years of quiet loneliness. Her mother, Evelyn, had recently begun recovering from major surgery after months of worrying that her daughter sacrificed every chance at love for her demanding career. Meredith had promised herself she would never lie to the woman who had raised her, but seeing Evelyn arrive with hopeful excitement broke her resolve for one desperate moment. Instead of walking away, Graham looked into Meredith's frightened eyes and noticed they were filled not with selfishness but with love. He realized she wanted to protect her mother's fragile heart, not her own pride. So he gently smiled, introduced himself to Evelyn, and spent the afternoon talking about ordinary things that somehow felt extraordinary. Clara happily joined every conversation, making Evelyn laugh harder than she had laughed in months. As sunlight poured through the hospital windows, something unexpected happened. The line never felt comfortable, yet the kindness behind it felt completely genuine. Graham admired the tenderness Meredith showed whenever she adjusted her mother's blanket or helped her drink water. Meredith noticed how naturally Graham listened instead of speaking about himself and how patiently he answered every curious question Clara asked. When Evelyn was discharged later that afternoon, she invited all 3 of them to her small countryside home for lunch the following weekend. Meredith planned to invent an excuse later, believing the charade had gone far enough, but Graham quietly agreed before she could respond. He wasn't doing it to continue pretending. He simply couldn't bear the thought of disappointing an elderly woman whose recovery seemed strengthened by hope. During the following Sunday afternoon, Graham and Clara arrived carrying fresh flowers from their own garden. Meredith watched in disbelief as her mother welcomed them like family. Laughter filled the little house while homemade soup warmed the kitchen. Clara proudly showed Evelyn her drawings, and Evelyn shared stories from her own youth, reminding everyone that life rarely follows the plans we make when we're young. The more time they spent together, the more difficult the situation became. Meredith feared Graham would eventually resent being trapped inside a misunderstanding. Graham worried Meredith carried far too much guilt for someone whose only mistake had been loving her mother deeply. Several weeks later, everything changed. While organizing old family photographs, Evelyn accidentally discovered pictures proving Meredith had attended family weddings alone for years. She quietly realized the truth before anyone confessed it. Instead of becoming angry, she felt heartbroken that her daughter believed she needed to hide her loneliness. That afternoon, Evelyn gently admitted she had known for several days. Meredith burst into tears. She apologized repeatedly for pretending. She confessed that after years of failed relationships and endless work, she had convinced herself she was disappointing everyone she loved. Evelyn held her daughter's hands and reminded her that being single was never a failure. The only tragedy would have been believing she needed to become someone else to deserve unconditional love. Graham stood nearby, realizing the greatest healing taking place had nothing to do with hospitals or medicine. It was the healing of fear, shame, and unrealistic expectations carried for far too many years. As summer afternoons turned into autumn, there was no longer any pretending. Graham visited because he genuinely wanted to. Meredith smiled because she no longer felt pressured to hide behind perfection. Clara found another grandmother figure who celebrated every school achievement and every crooked drawing she proudly created. One bright afternoon in the same garden where they had first shared lunch together, Graham admitted that the only reason he had stayed after that first whispered request was because kindness sometimes asks us to do something unexpected for another human being. What surprised him most was discovering that compassion had quietly opened the door to something much deeper than obligation. It had become friendship, trust, and eventually love built not on pretending but on honesty. Before this story comes to its heartfelt ending, we'd love to hear from you. Please leave a meaningful comment telling us whether you believe honesty, compassion, or second chances are the strongest foundation for lasting relationships. Months later, sunlight danced across Evelyn's blooming garden as 3 generations laughed around the same table where fear had once lived. Meredith no longer worried about meeting anyone's expectations because she had learned that real love never begins with perfection. Graham discovered that opening his heart again did not betray the memory of the woman he had lost, it honored her belief that kindness should always guide every decision. Clara gained a family that grew not through obligation but through genuine affection, proving that the strongest bonds are often formed in the most unexpected moments. If this story touched your heart, please like this video, leave a meaningful comment, share it with someone who needs hope today, and subscribe to our channel so you never miss another emotional journey. May we all remember that sometimes a single act of compassion toward a stranger becomes the beginning of the family we never expected but always needed.